Okay, welcome to the Steve Show. Well, really, Steve and Fraser sort of like slides in there a little bit. But today, what we're doing is we're having a session where Steve and I are talking about one of my favorite topics is referrals. You're right. Now, I know you don't call them referrals, Steve, do you? You're right.
Right. I call them introductions, but same thing. The concept is to meet people through people. And that to me is obviously very important. Most salespeople don't do that well. You particularly do it extremely well because you understand the whole concept. The average salesperson, if they even ask for an introduction, is like amazed that they will get an introduction. They're amazed. They actually don't think it works, so they never do it.
Yes.
Yet if they did it, 90% of people that you talk to will tell you they give you an introduction.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Yeah, I put this at the end of my notes here, right? But I have never actually met anybody ever, and I've read books about it. I never see anybody consistently getting referrals. I've never seen it. I mean,
no, I don't think it's
one person, right?
Yeah, they say it. I mean, everybody goes, "Oh, I do it." I don't think anybody really does it, and that's why it doesn't work.
Yes.
Because they go, well, if I ask too early, he or she won't buy from me. If I ask too late, then they won't buy from me. They'll never buy from me again. Yeah. Or I embarrass them or some ridiculous thing. And it's really just overcoming all that ridiculous fear that salespeople have over nothing.
Yes. No, I agree with you. You're right. It's an incredible thing, isn't it? Because I've seen people do unlimited referrals, and I've seen them, and I've seen books, and actually at the end of the day, I think the core of the problem for me, right, and this is where I think the struggle is people are teaching academically. They're not actually saying, this is what I did yesterday.
Yes. Well, that's interesting. I think, I was thinking the other day about sales training and the new sales training, meaning for the millennials coming into the world and what's going to happen. I think we're going to see more sales coaching than sales training. I think the word training is kind of funny. But but the point is, though, that you're right. I don't think it's taught, however you want to put that in terms of a course. I don't think people are really taught how to do this, how to ask, how to break the ice to ask the question, what do they do, and then what they do with the information. I find amazing is I'll say to somebody, well, I've got this list, and I'll go, what are you doing with it? Well, I have a list. I mean, they don't even know how to use it.
No, exactly.
Better than just having a list. It's like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just a list.
Yeah.
So everybody's got that. Yeah. I've got 10,000 people on my list in LinkedIn. It doesn't mean that I use it right. That's a big thing.
Yeah. Sorry, I've got to write notes here. Yeah, right. Just so I remember to because you're right. And I hadn't put this in my notes. That's why I'm writing it down. Is what do you do when you get them, right? That's just as critical, isn't it? You're right.
Yeah. I mean, you call them up, say, hey, listen, John said to call you, or Laurel said to call. I mean, what do you say when you call somebody up? And how do you set it up? Or do you not mention it all?
Yes.
And of course, that goes into the whole area of lead generation and prospecting,
yes,
which most salespeople, and again, you're not like that. I've been with you. You really do get these leads, but lead generation people actually don't even get leads. They don't even know to think about it.
We had when I was selling life insurance in the UK, which is like literally, it was 23 years ago, 22 years ago. More than that, yeah, 28 years ago. And we had a methodology. Do you remember the paper you used to get that was triplicate?
Yeah, oh, sure. Oh, the carbon. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So we had a set of questions which said...
And you realize some people don't know what we're talking about.
No, they don't, yeah.
Right on the paper. Like nobody...
3 pieces of paper. When you wrote in the top one, it went all the way through to the 3.
All the way through. Yeah, I remember. No,
I remember. Put a piece of card in there, you're right, right, to stop it going on all the rest. Anyway, I had made up, basically asked a question, right? And it said, who do you know that's director of a business? And I had 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then it said, who do you know that's a teacher? 1, 2, 3. And then who do you know who's an engineer? 1, 2, 3. And I had 7 questions.
Really?
With a client selling life insurance. At the end of the meeting, you did business. You had to sit and say, right, now I want to do my referral piece with you, if that's okay. Who do you know who's a director of a company? And you would go through it. And then you would go through each of these people and you would walk out with names. And you left one list for the client, one list for the manager, and one list for you.
Yeah, no, it's great. I like that's right. I used to index cards. I said, and I put 5 cards down. I said, could you help me just a little bit by giving me an introduction? And there were 5 cards there, so they knew Immediately, I'm going to write on 5 cards. It's the same concept. But I think the beauty of what you did is you did it. You know, that really is what most salespeople don't do.
But there was a problem.
What's that?
That people had big lists in their desks and nobody phoned them.
Yeah, all that paper. Oh, I got paper. But that raises another question, which is, why are salespeople so afraid of things? They're so afraid. What, they're not going to make a living, or they're so afraid of people? I always wonder. I talked to somebody the other day who I said, well, make some cold calls. I use your expression, cold call. And I thought he was going to jump out of his skin when I mentioned that, because most salespeople don't like that concept. They want warm leads, hot leads. They want people who are going to buy. You know, in that case, retail is the way you go. Go to retail.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
In a proactive sales environment, you've got to do some lead generation and find people.
Yes, exactly, yeah. See, talk me through, so what is an introduction? And what is an introduction?
Okay, well, introduction in terms of when you go into the meeting?
No, what's an introduction? When you get a referral, an introduction from a client, what is that?
Oh,
what do you get?
Okay, usually what I'm going to get is a name and a telephone number or an email. The problem is I've got to get through to that person. And we know that it's difficult on the phone and email to get through to it. It's difficult. So what I do is call up and just simply mention the person's name. I say, so-and-so suggests that I give you a call, which is not wrong. It's actually happened. Yeah. The problem is sometimes people don't even check their messages anymore. So they don't even hear that. How many times can you call back before you get a call back? Yeah. And so it's an interesting thing. What I've done is use email and the phone at the same time. In other words, I don't wait anymore. Yeah. I call you up, I leave a message, then I send an email that moment. I don't wait like 2 weeks later to see if you'll call back. I just send it right away. And in my email, and as well as the phone, I suggest we get together. So I'm always looking for that meeting.
See, I sort of see 3 types of referrals, yeah? Referral one is what you described there, which is a name where you can use the other person's name. So that would be an inferred referral, yeah? Right. The second type of referral is where the client maybe introduces me to, say I'm introduced to you by John on LinkedIn, and he sends a message, CCs me, gives me a phone number. That's a direct introduction. And then the third is a qualified introduction where he's talked to his friend and he has a need, and I get the name from him, right? Do you feel like that? I mean.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that there are that. My favorite is when they call you, which never happens.
But I think that's what people mean when you say a referral. I think that's what people associate with the word referrals or introductions, is something like that. But that's not controllable, right? In my opinion.
No. You can't. You mean somebody calling you? No, no. The ideal situation is for the person to actually make a call for you.
Yes.
Introduce you to that person.
It's quite difficult to get people to do that, isn't it? Unless
I had it done once in my entire career.
At least they're honest.
One time, the guy said, I'll call him now for you. I never forgot. It was a bank. And I was in shock. I couldn't, and he did call. And we did like a little joint call, and I went and got disappointed. But I remember, only time it's ever happened was one time where the guy actually called me.
I've seen coaches teach that concept, okay, right? But I've never seen anybody do it, right? You know, on a consistent, ongoing basis. And I've seen people say, "Well, I'm going to disown you as a client if you don't do this," right? I've seen people say, "I'm going to do this," but again, they never do it, right? You know,
it's just. But so let's give an answer then to the question.
Okay.
How should somebody get introduction? And I think the first answer, and I'd love to hear more about what you think, is one, you got to do it. You have to try it. You have to ask.
I agree with you. Yeah, 100%.
It's just that simple.
Yes.
Right? I think the second thing, which you said, which I think is really right, write something down. I like, now, of course, nobody understands what we're talking about, the 3-page document, but a piece of paper really helps.
Yes.
I tell salespeople all the time, make sure you take notes. And the reason I tell them to take notes is it communicates to the individual you're speaking to that what they're saying is important. So that really works. So by taking notes, you're communicating non-verbally. What has to happen is if somebody gives you a referral, you have to be able to write it down. If you have no paper there, where are you going to say to him, oh, this is important?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the second thing I think is important.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
go ahead.
No, you go.
And the third thing that ties into this whole thing is then you've got to act on it, and in a reasonable period of time. It can't be 6 months later.
No.
Use any business you want, whether it's life insurance or sales training or courier services, whatever you sell. You have to act on that introduction almost immediately before you almost get out the door.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's going to drift away real fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And so realistically, building your business in the back of hot referrals coming through the door is pretty unrealistic. Let's just cover this and tick this box. But if you're going to focus on that, really you've got to deliver exemplary service, and you've got to be driving some sort of mechanism through to keep yourself front of mind so people introduce you. I mean, you've got to be doing something pretty special to scale on the back of that.
I think it's an excellent point. You because it doesn't happen often, but occasionally the person you referred to will call the other person back and say, hey, I met with so-and-so, or, why did you hire him? Or what they say, whatever, it doesn't matter. There is some communication there, and so you don't want to lose that either. And I think that's the fear. The fear is I'm going to lose that person in the first place. Yeah. But I think those 3 steps we talked about are very important for.
Yeah, no, they're critical. Yeah. So if we go back to those steps, because I like the steps a lot. Yeah. I think that it's really simple. Just do it.
Right. Just do it. Make sure you're writing it down.
Right.
Okay, so there's
the
paper there. So non-verbally, you're saying to them, this is important.
Yeah.
You make sure you thank them, but then you act on those introductions, referrals immediately. I mean, they're hot now. You don't have the luxury, nor do you want the luxury to wait 6 weeks. Why would anybody wait 6 weeks?
So let's go back to the just do it now thing here, right? Which is you got to take action and you got to ask. So at a simple level, I hear what I hear you saying, right? And look for me, I'm very, very systemized. I get 10, 15, 20 referrals a week if I ask. Okay? And I ask on a regular basis. I don't ask every week, which I should and could, but I probably couldn't cope with what's coming. But when I ask, I did a little bit of an example for a client. He said, well, I'm not sure if you do, Fraser. And my methodology is to get people to give me access to their LinkedIn lists. And so out of that, I got 8 people to do it and got 10 referrals from each person.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's excellent.
But that's what you're saying. It's the doing it bit, isn't it? Right? So you've got to strategize around doing it. Yeah, right. You've got to have a model to say, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to do it. Yeah.
It strikes me that it's almost a sale within a sale.
Yeah.
It's a sale. You almost have to separate yourself out from what I sold, but now I've got to do this other thing.
Yeah.
But it's lead generation. It's important to do it.
So do you think, so let's not focus on why people don't do it. Let's focus on the system. So if we take it back a step, because I think for me, referral starts before the do it bit I'm doing, all right? So I've not really got an issue with that personally. And when I'm coaching and working, and same with yourself, we coach people, we get them to do it, although it is a struggle sometimes. But there does have to be a layer of trust there with the client, doesn't there? Right? I find that if I get beyond a certain point of trust with a client, they're happy to introduce me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. If you don't have that trust, no one's going to do it. But they're not going to buy from you anyway. If they don't really trust you, the idea of getting a sale is difficult. I mean, we go through the steps, and we can say, initially they don't trust you. You're a seller, you're a supplier, you're a vendor, then you're a trusted advisor. So you've got to get to a certain degree where people do trust you, and so that the sale kind of says that.
Agreed.
But I don't think you should be fooled that the sale says it. They really trust you.
It's just a way to say it, but yes, you're right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, they're buying, but that could be because at that moment it sounded right. It's only later, the second sale, third sale, second involvement, where they're actually trusting and believing in what you have to say.
Yeah, they might be buying the product, but not you, right? They might like you, but they might not trust you. I mean, I find if you've only spent 4 hours, the customer by right shouldn't trust you until he's sort of 6-7 hours.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think there's a number. In fact, I was working on something the other day, and I was thinking how many touches, and I don't want to get into this, but how many touches do we need to make a sale?
Yes.
So if you know that the average sale takes, let's say, 7 times, you have to touch somehow. You have to communicate. They get a reaction. You react back and forth. Then you know, if you know that number, you know on the 7th touch for that person, you're going to make a sale. That's invaluable information. That's like CIA information.
I like it.
If you can figure that out, if I need to touch somebody 7 times, somewhere along the line, 7 different times, and that actually was the number, all you do is you count 7, I get the sale. You don't get the 7, you don't get the sale. I think it's an interesting concept.
I'm 100% with you on this. So yeah, I think if you correlated time with touches, yeah, right, you'd have a very nice metric there. And the quality of touches, probably there's a minimum, like sending an email and an email back's not really a touch. But if you get them to send you some information, that would be a touch, right?
Yes. They have to be engaged. Just to digress for a second, a prospect has to be engaged. If all it is a one-way street, that is, you're sending information to them, and they're not engaged in the conversation, they're not sending information back or discussing things with you, there really isn't really a prospect. It's a lead.
I see 2 core metrics in sales that I think are really important. One is that are health checks for me on how successful a sales business is. One is how effectively they're using their CRM systems. And the businesses that use them well, for me, perform really well, right? Because people know what's going on. But the second is how many referrals they're getting, right? And how easy it is to get referrals. And what you said earlier, I think, takes that to the next level, which is just because they buy from you doesn't mean they trust you. But if they give you referrals, they trust you. So if you're asking for referrals and you get that uncomfortable moment, it's almost like a sign, isn't it? Yeah, right. That they don't trust you. That's what your relationship is. It's not a bad thing. It's just let you know where your relationship is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just what it is at that moment. It doesn't say it can't happen, but it's what it is at that moment. But I just think, again, if people do certain things that are easy, it's easy to ask for that. If they would just do it, they'd be more successful. So anyway, that's my thinking about the whole thing. But that touch thing is very important, because if you can figure that out and you start to understand that, then you say to yourself, okay, so I've reached out, we've communicated 4 times, but I need 7 times. What's my plan of action? So that's a big thing. Most salespeople actually don't have a plan. They're even in their head sometimes. They go, what are you going to do next? And I go, well, is it really much of a plan? It sounds interesting. It's an interesting note, but it's not the plan to get you past that. So you have to think about that for a while.
I think you're right. I mean, you're going to distract me here, and I'm going to go down a different route, and I want to stay with referrals because I think that's really interesting. I think it
does. It leads off the whole discussion. In fact, that's really, if you thought about it, isn't that a sale, a discussion that you're in control where you pull it back in? You can let it drift off. People are funny. They think a sale has to be just down this one road about my product, about my service. That's all I'm going to talk about. You can go off the road. You can derail yourself and go down the rails over here and then bring it back if you know how to have a conversation.
I agree. Yes. Yeah, you're right. So
just bring it back.
So what I find is that salespeople get to a point, they close the sale, and they're a little bit uncomfortable to ask for referrals, maybe because they don't want to jeopardize the sale, or they don't want to press the client, or the client's already committed to X, Y, Z. So I find that asking probably 2 meetings after I've got the sale and I've confirmed that I'm going to do what I said I was going to do, maybe 3 times, becomes very easy. I mean, look, when I've delivered training to someone for a day or worked with a company for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, at that point, it becomes very simple to say, by the way, Steve, I've really enjoyed working with you. And I've mentioned to you this half a dozen times. Look, I work on a recommendation, and now a recommendation basis or an introduction basis. Would you mind helping me out?
Right. That's it. That's exactly. And that is what you should say. Because we do all work off recommendations or introductions. So we say it. But I think what you just said is the honest approach. It's just straight out. I remember somebody years ago selling to me and saying, if I get 5 people from you as an introduction, I'll win a trip to Mexico. He actually said that. I sat there and I remember like it was yesterday. I just said, are you serious? I mean, is this real? I mean, it sounded so fake, and it was. I later found out it was fake. But at the moment,
but this is what he's saying. He's saying to you, you're going to introduce people to me. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to promise to make more money because introductions are so good. And I'm going to get a free holiday.
Yeah, that's what it's. I mean, and it wasn't, but it was real. It was a gimmick that he used to get people to do that. And I thought about that years later. Why did he feel it was necessary to use a gimmick? Instead of, because using a gimmick, you might win, but you won't win again. You win maybe once, twice. Then eventually it catches up and it doesn't really work.
You could lose your mind if you send a picture from Mexico, yeah? So.
Yeah, well, that's what anyway, but I didn't go, supposedly. But he didn't go. It was no real trip. It's like baby needs new shoes. It's just
absolutely. It's funny how people navigate through the referral. So one of the talking about that, and I think this is the really core point that people want to hear from you and understand, is this. Mm-hmm. What you said there is that we do get a bit uncomfortable with it, right? Why do we not just tell the truth? So again, look, one of the things that I use. Sorry, I'm passionate about it.
No, go ahead. Obviously.
So one of the things I use is I go, look, Steve, look, this is really difficult for me. I never really I find it difficult to ask for referrals or introductions, but it's a core part of my job, and it makes my life much easier. And it helps me engage with clients more effectively. I was wondering if you'd like to help me, or you could help me out with this.
Yeah. No, but that's the truth. So, I mean, but there's one other thing, somebody I'm thinking about that I coach, and he could go into a room and meet everybody in the room and literally shake hands with everybody. I mean, he really could do that. Yeah. And I said, where'd that come from? Because it's unusual for a guy to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Most men don't like those kind of situations. They're shy about that. Most people are shy about it. He said to me, he just does it. He doesn't think. He just goes up to somebody and says, hello. Yeah. He just says that. Yeah. And he just has overcome every anxiety, every fear to meet people. Now, when he's with a colleague, they cannot keep up with him because most people don't do that. So that's kind of the tie-in to this whole thing, is that the average person, especially men, I hate to say it that way, are really resident about going up to somebody they don't know or asking an awkward question. They're just concerned about that. Women seem to do a little bit better job of it, but probably not. It's still the same thing. It's still that nervous.
I think they're less manipulative, and they're a little bit more genuine, and they're a little bit nicer in how they go about things.
I think we looked at that from one point of view. Yeah.
And so, it's interesting. You changed my track there, right? So how do we get people to? So I think there's 3 types of discipline. There's self-discipline, there's autocratic corporate discipline, and there's a discipline where you get a blend of both, and you empower your manager to say, make sure I do this every meeting, right? I mean, how do I, and I'm like, how do I make that happen,
Yeah, but you just said something that's kind of important. Sales management tell salespeople every day, this is what I want you to do. And most salespeople don't do it. And the reason for that is it's not a habit for them. They don't think of it as a habit, which really needs to be. In other words, it's got to be incorporated into your whole sales pitch, so to speak. And I hate that word, but it's got to be what you're going to do.
Yeah.
The issue is that the sales manager, let's say that the manager is the coach. Just make it easy. Yeah. Sales manager, sales coach, executives, whatever. They are not consistent in asking the questions either. And I'm talking about all levels, not just on this level. They're not consistently in asking or communicating. I don't believe that salespeople and managers actually speak the same language. No. There's a whole different concept at times. And I think that that's where the mistake is, or that's where the problem really is. It lies in the fact that they're not communicating properly.
Because a manager should, if I go out to a meeting, a manager should be sitting with me saying, right, how did the meeting go? What did you do there? At this stage in the meeting, what did you do? Right, now let's get to the referrals. Did you, because I mention referrals at every meeting, okay? So I sit and I say, look, by the way, I work on a referral basis. At some point in the future, I'm going to have a conversation with you about this, yeah? And so if I've done that every time, you know, at some point in the future, when I mention it to them, say, could you help me out? They're happy. You know? So,
Right, that's right.
So I think you're right. I think the problem. So is the problem the manager or the salesperson? I mean, the company loses the most.
Yes.
The salesperson loses stability.
But the company doesn't necessarily see that because they don't know that they didn't get the sale. They only know what they got. I think the issue is the managers are not as consistent, and the sales reps and the managers are not working together. Maybe working opposite each other.
Yeah.
Always communicate properly, both sides. And sales managers have to step up and become much more efficient than probably what they're doing now.
So if we were to summarize, you go out, every time you have a meeting, you mention that you work on referrals and that you'd appreciate help, but not just now, because we've got to build up our relationship.
Right. Sure.
Or some sort of language like that. There's a variety of phrases you can say. Then at a certain point you say, Steve, it's been great working with you. I've really enjoyed our process. I think we've got to a point where we're both very comfortable with each other. I would really appreciate your help. I work on an introduction basis. Would it be possible to get you to give me some introduction?
Right. That's it. I mean, really, it is. If you actually listen to that, it's relatively simple.
Yes.
It's not all that complicated. But again, most salespeople don't do it.
And okay.
And most don't reinforce.
So we need to fix the management model. The salesperson needs to fix. So if the manager's not doing a good job, the salesperson should actually say, hey, hold on, I need the manager to help me here.
That's right. That's right.
Tell the manager to help them, yeah.
Right. That's that. You said something that I think few people even understand what the role of the sales manager is. The role of the sales manager is not to beat the salesperson up, but it's to assist them in becoming successful.
Yeah. And it's coaching like you started with today. Yeah, it's about coaching. So we do this. We ask for referrals. Look, there's a few methodologies, and maybe at a certain point we'll go into some of these and we'll talk through some of the processes. Maybe do another session of specific methodologies of what you say and when you say it, because today is just a bit of a chat. So now I come to I get names.
Right.
So I get it.
Yeah. You got to do something. Right. So what we talked about before is a call, an email, even a letter. You know, nobody uses postage anymore, but use a letter. I mean, there's so many different things that we can use. But again, you know, it's funny. I was speaking to a salesperson the other day, sales representative the other day, and she said to me, I don't have a stamp. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I don't have postage.
Yeah.
And I thought about that later, and I said, you know, most salespeople don't mail letters. They don't write. They don't have envelopes to write a letter. There's no stationery for. I mean, this is a true story. They have no stationery for the reps. Haven't even thought about that.
No.
And nobody else does either. I mean, you could exist without a piece of paper if you really wanted to. You could send it through email. So we have to think a little bit more low key, less. That's why some of the CRMs are good, but they direct you to use the CRM to produce everything. And it's electronic. There's nothing touching.
Do you think so? I mean, look. I mean, my opinion is that you've got to make a phone call, okay, at some point.
Right. That's right.
And look, people sometimes rely on LinkedIn and SMS and WhatsApp and email. But I think a phone calls, ultimately, we should all be able to do that in an ideal world, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think that prior to the phone call, we would reach out on email, LinkedIn, and then follow up with
I would try. Yeah, I think anything you can do to communicate ahead of time is good, but don't be foolish that communication is going to always work if you don't act on it right away.
Okay, so I've been introduced to Bobby. Bobby doesn't know that he's been introduced to me.
That's right.
I'm going to send an email to Bobby, right, that I know Steve Schiffman. And, you know, I'm going to give you a call over the next few days. Kind regards, Fraser. And what would I say on the call? Yeah, how would can you do? Because you're so good at this. I mean, this is not
the actual telephone call itself.
Walk me through the telephone call, yeah, right? Because people struggle with that. Yeah?
Okay. No, I think it's very simple. The reason that I'm calling you, right, is that I worked with Paul, and he suggested I give you a call because he was happy with what we were able to do. So you don't have to get in. See, I think people think that they have to give this big commercial. It's like cold calling in one sense. You want the appointment. You don't want to sell on the phone. You don't want to have a 40-minute discussion about what you did. You want to just get the appointment, and also because there's an assumption made that there's some combination of things that person, the other person does, and they do together, that you actually have a synergy. You can make something work out of that. That I think really is what happens.
Brilliant. Can you say that again? Because it's the subtlety of what you're saying there that makes it perfect here. It's
well, that I work. Yeah. And the reason I'm calling is I just finished working with Paul. We're very successful in doing this project, and I'd like to just meet with you. You're just tying it in. You're not saying. See, the mistake I think is that salespeople try to say that I can do it for you, but they don't know that yet until they meet the person. And there actually is some degree of communication.
Yeah, that's interesting. And they're trying to work out whether there's an opportunity there. Look, my opinion is salespeople are always trying to work out if there's an opportunity there for them as early as they can, instead of waiting till the right time to find that out.
Right. That's right. That's right. No, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
So let's just wrap this up. If we were to summarize this, look, I think the core thing I take away is just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Do it.
I think you're right.
Write it down. Make it as part of your total sales environment, so that it's part and parcel of what you do. It's like getting delivery on time. You're going to get the product there. Well, make this part of it, getting there too.
And so have a really clear process. That's what you're saying, right? Of what you do, when you do it. So every meeting you do, blah, 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 blah. And at a certain point, you're going to ask when the trust gets to a certain point. Yeah. So once trust is there, when trust's there, you can ask. But we want to add in here, because there's a couple of things I think come out of that I've not thought of before. If your manager's not nagging you about it, you should ask your manager to nag you.
That's good. I like that.
You should empower your manager to nag you. Yeah, that's what he's paid for. He's actually paid to keep you on track. So if you're not doing what you're supposed to do in each meeting, for me, why not say, hey, Steve, look, I'm supposed to do this and I've not been doing it. Can you call me after every meeting for the next, and I think you talk about 3 weeks here, right? Every meeting I do for the next 3 weeks and nag me. If I don't do it, I will give you $5.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Well, that's good, right? I'm committing myself, So commit yourself to do it to someone else.
Right.
But they've got to check. So then once you've done it, you get the names through. Then you need a process there of what am I going to send to this person and when am I going to do it?
Right. But you mentioned something interesting, and then we should wrap up, but is make sure that you can fulfill the time requirements to do all this. I think salespeople get a lot of leads and then they never act on it because they think they're busier than they are. And that leads to a whole other topic, which I don't want to go into now.
I'm guilty of that as well, right? I'm guilty of that.
How to manage your time. How to manage.
You've got to get it right. And that's a different subject. And that we're going to cover is time management and how to run your time. Look, Steve, I know we're going to cut it now, right? Thank you very much. I hope this was really helpful for everybody. I particularly enjoyed this session. I think this session, probably, if you listen to it and act on it, is worth a 30 to 40% increase in your revenue.
I agree with you.
100%. I really do believe that. I think of all the things that we've done, I think this is one of the core ones. Steve is always available to talk to people. Some people think because you sold 8 million books that you're not approachable. Steve's email address is
sschiffman@steveschiffman.com, or just go to steveschiffman.com on website, and you'll find the website, and you can connect through there. So that's easy.
LinkedIn, you're on. Steve Schiffman's on LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn.
Right? He takes private clients, talks to people, does coaching. He steps into your business, and he does a wonderful thing. You're right, where he'll do a live webinar with your sales team. You're right, for a couple of hours during an event. You've done it a couple of times for clients of mine. Absolutely brilliant. You did it for Chubb, and you did it for a couple of other large businesses, and it was very successful. Where just a quick hour of Steve, and it's very, very impressive. Anyway, Steve's available. That's his email address. I hope you're going to look forward and join us for the next podcast and the next webinars. Steve, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you. You're right, and it's really great. It's really very insightful. Makes me think about what I'm doing. So look forward to next week. I'll speak then. Thanks.